Right now, as you're watching this video, your brain gets to decide what's real and what's not. And you have absolutely no say in the matter. That's because at any one point, our brains are trying to process millions of bits of information, which is just not possible. Imagine your brain trying to process that much information. It would probably explode. You'd be there doing your weekly shop in Tesco and you'd have a meltdown. It's just not viable. Your brain has to filter out what it views as important and what not. And a lot of that is heavily dependent on your beliefs and values, which I've talked about in a previous video, but also your previous experiences. So if we think about those millions of bits of information that are trying to enter your brain, let's use the analogy of your brain being a nightclub and your brain's filters are the bouncers. So we're all stood in the queue trying to get in. We are the millions of bits of information trying to enter the club. And at the door are three bouncers. These three bouncers are the most important ones because they're going to determine whether we can get in and have a good time or if we have to turn around and go home. And those three bouncers are deletion, distortion, and generalization. And you will be doing these every single day without even knowing about it. So let's tackle the first one, deletion. The deletion bouncer is quite an important one, but it's also the one that ignores most of the information. So if I was to say to you, I want you to describe all the good things and bad things that have happened in your day today, if you're like most people, you will probably zone in and focus on the negative stuff that's happened whilst deleting all the good things that have happened. That's because as human beings, we're wired with a negativity bias. That's something for another video, but the point I'm trying to make is you will quite easily be able to remember the bad things that have happened, but you might find it a lot harder to remember the good things until you train your brain to do it. That's because your brain is deleting all the positive information to just focus on the negatives. It happens in all aspects of life. Like right now, as I'm recording this video and talking to you, I'm primarily focused on the words that are coming out of my mouth, maintaining eye contact with the lens, and speaking into the microphone. I'm also semi-conscious of how you're going to interpret what I'm saying in the video. There is so much more information that's being bombarded to my brain, but my brain is selectively deleting it because right now that's not important. So there's background noise outside, there is light coming from the window, I'm sitting on a chair, the clothes against my skin, all these different sensations and feelings and bits of information are being selectively deleted, but that doesn't mean that they're not real. It doesn't mean that they're not part of it doesn't mean that they're not part of reality, they're just not part of my reality. Because what I really want you to understand is you are living your version of reality, your brain's perceptions of reality. There's no such thing as one reality. We are all living in a filtered version of our own reality. Okay, and it's the brain's filters that are causing that to happen. And as I said at the beginning of the video, those filters are heavily influenced by your beliefs, your values, and your previous lived experiences, which leads me on to bouncer number 2. This is the distortion bouncer. And this bouncer is the one that changes the meaning of the information that's coming in. So a very common phrase or example that people will hear is, "You look well." Maybe it's a comment from a family member or a stranger. And depending on what you believe about yourself, you're going to take that comment in a certain way. I mentioned before about the negativity bias. I know that personally, as a younger person, I was overweight and I saw myself as a fat person and I saw myself as someone who was not good enough and not worthy. So when someone said to me, "You look well," my brain distorted that information and distorted that comment and completely applied a different meaning to it. A meaning that meant that I'd put on weight. Heavily influenced by how I thought about myself and how I saw myself, I've distorted that comment and turned it into something else. You may notice this with comments or conversations that you have in your relationships or at work. Can we have a chat is a very common example of this. Someone comes up to you and says, can we talk, or can we have a chat, or we need to have a chat? You are instinctively going to think worst case scenario, because everybody does. Again, there's that negativity bias, but it's your brain distorting the comment that's been made to have you in fight or flight mode, to have you in a kind of protective mode, because your unconscious mind is trying to protect you and keep you safe, and it is determined that that is a threat. So it's distorted the information and turned the meaning around. Another example, again, along the similar lines, would be if someone gives you a compliment, depending on how you feel about yourself, and especially if you're British people notoriously, we cannot take a compliment. If someone compliments the way you look, it is almost an instinctive reaction from a British person, rather than take the compliment, to make a comment about where it was they got it from, downgrade how much it cost. Oh, this thing, I got it in a charity shop. We are so incapable of taking that compliment, and we distort that compliment to mean a different thing, or to try and belittle it, or bring it down. That compliment someone says about how well you look, you might just think, oh, they're just being nice, they don't mean it. Again, a lot of that stems from how you see yourself and the views and beliefs that you have about yourself and what you've picked up over time and what your unconscious programs are running. But that comment, that compliment, is being distorted, and that is another filter of the brain. The last bouncer on the door is generalization. And generalization is basically where we are using the past to predict the future. So let's use a nightclub analogy. The bouncer on the door sees 4 lads trying to get into the club, and that bouncer knows that last week 4 lads came in, caused trouble, and the police were called, and it led to a number of arrests. So this week, that bouncer sees 4 lads trying to get into the club and turns them away, because what's happened previously is 4 lads came in, caused problems, led to a difficult situation later down the line, blah, 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 whatever, it doesn't really matter. But the point I'm trying to make is the bouncer has seen that and generalized that those 4 lads are going to mean trouble because that's what's happened before, and has turned them away. So in our instances, in our situations, it might be that one bad experience links to this always happens. It's a thought that this is always going to happen. If we take a real life day-to-day example, let's say you walk into a building for the very first time, and as you approach the door, you see the handle on the door. You will instinctively make a decision to push or pull the door based on what you have experienced previously. If the handle is on the outside and you can grab hold of the handle, chances are that your first instinct is going to pull the door, because that is what you've done previously. Your brain goes to the door to save information. It's just going to go, see the door, see the handle. That means pull to open the door. That's a common lived example of a generalization. Another generalization would be that you see one failure or one mistake and generalize that is just your life now. That is just you. That one thing is going to happen in every aspect of your life. It's not real, it's just going off previous experiences, previous events that have happened in your life, and it's now predicting that is going to be your future. So it's important to understand that these 3 filters are massively impacting how you're going about your day-to-day life and how you see yourself and the world around you. The key points that I want you to remember from this video are that you are not seeing reality, you are seeing a filtered version of reality, and those filters are deletions, distortions, and generalizations, and a lot of those are based on what you believe or what you have previously experienced in your own life. And if you want to learn more about your beliefs, how they're formed and how you can change them, then you can watch the video that's on the screen here, and I'll see you in the next one.